Hello, welcome everyone. This is Linda Shea with IADC and Drilling Contractor. We're glad you are here joining our virtual panel discussion today, sponsored by Weatherford. The theme of our session is opportunities and challenges to improve integration and efficiency among operators, contractors, and service companies. And before I introduce our three panelists, just a few words to set up a framework for our discussion. After several years of a terrible downturn, the offshore drilling industry is finally in an upcycle where drilling activity is increasing and offshore rigs are in high demand. So the environment is definitely positive. But along with that activity increase, we're also seeing growing challenges around the workforce, the supply chain, and rig startups and mobilizations, even as we're witnessing an ongoing evolution around how operators, drilling contractors, and service companies work together. Especially as operators seek to streamline the number of vendors they work with and contract directly, the role of the drilling contractor is rapidly changing to serve not simply as a rig provider, but as the central focal point of multiple service deliveries at the well site. And this is all happening at a time when new business models and contracting strategies are being considered. So we've convened this panel today with representation from all three of those stakeholder perspectives, so we can explore both the opportunities and the challenges we're all seeing as that evolution plays out in this cycle. We hope to spur some discussion, maybe provide some insights and food for thought that you can take away. We want to make sure the session is valuable to you, so please make sure to submit questions using the Q&A function in Zoom. You may submit them at any time during the next hour, and please make sure that your name and company affiliation are clearly stated. We hope to get to those questions in the last 15 to 20 minutes of this session. So with that, I will introduce our first panelist. Alexander Concha is Global VP for OFS and Rig Contractors Global Accounts for Weatherford. Alex is a sales professional with 22 years in the oil and gas industry. He has experience working with multidisciplinary teams in several countries in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. He has deep knowledge in business development, contract negotiation, project management, new technologies, introduction, and marketing strategy. Alex is also passionate about helping others and has a drive for providing exceptional customer service. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you for letting me share my ideas in this virtual panel discussion. I consider this a very good opportunity to visualize different points of view in relation to the opportunities and challenges, the three of the companies we have. So there are similar challenges in the development of our activities. So this is a very good space to discuss. So thanks again.
Thank you, Alex. Our next panelist is Chris Scarborough, P&O Wells Advisor of Well Control for BP. So Chris joined BP in 2011 as a member of the Well Control team. And prior to BP, he spent 10 years as a senior well control specialist for Boots & Coots. He entered the oil and gas industry in 1998 as a roustabout for Noble Drilling. Chris is actively involved in several committees as part of API, IADC, and the IOGP Wells Expert Committee. And he has a Bachelor of Science degree from the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. Welcome to the session, Chris. Would you like to say a few words to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Linda. Thank you to IADC and Weatherford for this opportunity to participate. I think for me, the biggest focal point is our industry today is still very human intensive, a lot of resourcing, a lot of manual work. You know, we are considered a high-risk industry, much like aviation, that has switched and gone very big into the automation and, you know, the machine working space. And I think this is our opportunity. We're taking small steps, but to really start moving in that direction, I think there's a valuable benefit of both human safety and operational efficiency that can be gained.
Thank you, Chris. And last but definitely not least, we have JP Buizing, who is Director of Technical Sourcing and Fleet Integrity Planning at Transocean. JP holds a mechanical engineering degree and a master's degree in petroleum engineering, and he joined Transocean's legacy company Sedco Forex in 1996 and has managed several offshore drilling rigs in West Africa, Europe, and Southeast Asia. Other projects he's been involved with include the development of Transocean's CAPM dual gradient drilling solution, establishing Transocean Subsea Task Force Department, And in 2018, he joined Transocean's global supply chain group and took over its technical sourcing department, overseeing their entire capital spares program, global sourcing activities, as well as all supplier agreements. JP, welcome, and thank you for being here with us this morning and for being gracious enough to step in the last minute for another colleague who couldn't join us this morning. Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, thank you, Linda, and good morning, everyone. Really excited about the opportunity to hear from my fellow panelists, but also all the questions that we'll get from the audience. In my recent experience, I've seen that the cyclic nature of our business is not new for us. And for a lot of us with gray hair, this is something that we've grown accustomed to and dealt with. The sheer nature of the last downturn has really challenged how we have historically dealt with this downturn, and our industry has reacted to it. Effectively, the downturn that we experience and the sheer length of it has led us to consider that to be the new normal, leading to changes in behavior and driving long-lasting changes. Some of these have been challenging due to lack of investment, scale down capability or capacity from our supplier. That will definitely take a long time to restore. Lack of interest in our industry, impacting our ability to quickly ramp up resources, and more recently, I call it the perfect storm. Our industry resurgence is coinciding with all the global challenges that we're all aware of: supply chain disruption, COVID, and so on. On a positive note, I think these changes in behavior and have led us to positive changes in our industry. I think we've also long-lasting effect, such as optimizing our operation with dramatic results in uptime and safety across the board, exploring new models with our partners, eliminating waste, reducing costs, and improving efficiency through technology. So while I see the road ahead will be tough, the tension has and will continue to create real opportunities. So really looking forward to the future here.
Thank you, JP. First, I'd like to get everyone's perspectives around where we are in the market today. We know the offshore industry has been through a terrible down cycle the last few years, and we're now coming off of that cycle, entering what we hope is a multi-year upcycle. So how do you guys see this cycle being different from the previous ones that we've been through? Maybe JP, could you lead us off with this discussion?
Absolutely. As I mentioned in my introduction, the life cycle or the cycle has been different and leading to long-lasting effect. So we're not effectively able to bounce back as quickly as we have done in a traditional fashion. We cannot reopen plants. They are not there anymore, or people are not waiting for a phone call. They have moved on. But we've learned to operate in a more efficient manner with less people. We have implemented different models of partnership with our suppliers and customer to really create incentive around common success, something that our industry has not done well in the past, where we try to create a situation where everybody wins, right? So another aspect has been scrapping of a lot of old iron, so to speak. So the fleet, offshore fleet specifically, has been leaned down significantly, creating an opportunity with more capable drilling units basically coming on the other side, better equipped to meet our customers' expectations and requirements.
Alex, what are your thoughts on this?
So my perspective is in terms of the production from the deep water environment. I will say since 2019, deep water global production surpassed 10 million barrels per day. So deep water is the fastest growing oil and gas resource today. Places like Brazil, Guyana, and Mozambique are the main growth drivers, and also the developments are also getting deeper, right? So, however, the characteristics of the deep water makes it attractive area for those seeking advantaged resources. The deep water economics and emissions intensity metrics are among the best in the industry. Then companies are focusing most in resilient projects, and the decarbonization will continue to consider the sector as a core for their upstream business, is what I think. Also, the forecast for mature deep water basins remains uncertain, but we could see production performance to begin to peak and then plateau after, the upcoming years, 24, 20, 30 even. Now, with the recent technology advances and cost reduction in exploration and production activities, many oil and gas production companies are increasing investing in developing deep water. So it's probably that the increase of exploration activities and production may lead to offshore during market expansion in the upcoming years. So yeah, in our service sector, we are noticing that this cycle is different because the amount of activity we're seeing from the operators and the demand of tenders and opportunities coming up.
Chris, from the operator's perspective, how do you see the cycle where we are today?
So to me, this cycle's different. We've gone through downturns. We've come out of downturns. What I'm seeing that's dramatically different from previously is we don't have the energy or excitement of the next generation of worker wanting to enter our industry. And I think that's one of our biggest challenges we're facing today.
That's certainly true. I think a lot of companies are facing that challenge. And I think JP also mentioned as well that people are just not waiting by the phone anymore for us to call them back. So we know there's a growing talent gap in the oil and gas industry. So what do you guys think we should be doing now to ensure we have the right skills within our workforce to prepare us for the future? JP, do you want to take this one first?
Sure. It's always been a challenge to attract new talents in our industry. In the past, I guess the excitement of traveling, the excitement of the remuneration that we could offer offshore workers has eroded to a point. The world continues to change, and our next generation of workers have different expectations than they had at least when I joined the industry, and our industry definitely needs to recognize this. So a lot of companies have ESG goals, and they are important goals, but they need to be visible, being emission reduction, meaningful focus on diversity or community engagement. But it's not the only thing. I think it's important for the new generation, but we also need to make the oil and gas cool, if you want, right? Offshore drilling is an exciting environment. The machines are fantastic machines, but I think with the introduction of new technologies such as robotics, data analytics, we can create alternative career path opportunities for young talents, and we can capitalize on that.
Alex, do you have any thoughts on what we can do around the workforce development area?
Yeah, kind of aligned with JP. Organizations today are facing increasing pressure to solve tomorrow's problem today, while also questioning how to equip the future workforce with the right skills to do so, right? So, and a holistic workforce development framework is key to shifting what, where, and how learning in the flow of life happening, right? While focusing on developing skills for the workforce is necessary, it's not enough to address the needs today. A market environment is today complicated in that situation. So the pace of the change is too rapid, quickly making even typical reskilling efforts obsolete. So what is needed is a workforce development approach centered on personalized learning, I will say, leadership, experiences, and growth, the flow life that considers both the dynamic nature of jobs and equally the dynamic potential of the people to reinvent themselves, right? So to have the right skills, I will summarize it in prepare the future workforce now. I mean, workforce development helps organizations define the skills and capability needed to their future business strategy, identify the gaps in the current workforce, and create innovative strategies and programs to build those capacities. Also, redefine the workforce itself in order to meet these increasing rates of change in organization are clear that they need to prioritize the learning for the workforce. That's in general what I think. I mean, in some initiatives, in our case, for example, we are using the Next Generation Initiative Program, where we involve the new graduates in our company in early stages of their careers. That is kind of shifting a little bit the mindset of the people entering in the industry from the service perspective.
Chris, what about you? What do you think we should be doing now to prepare our workforce?
So I see several different aspects that need to be addressed. First one would be recruiting, and that's going to require communication. The workforce or the potential workforce wants to feel good about what they do every day. And so it's really about communicating outside of our industry what good we do, what our work and oil and gas does to improve the lives around the globe every day. Everything from, it's not just making a car run. It's not just putting power to houses. There's a lot more that our industry does, from supporting pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, and it's necessary. So when people can feel that, hey, my job is making a difference in the world, there's a benefit there. And for those that are really focused on this energy transition, I think a big part of that transition is being driven by oil and gas operators within our industry. And so them understanding that they can be part of that transition, even if they're working in wells. And there's a big benefit there. I also think we need to start the recruiting earlier. We start recruiting college juniors and seniors, when they come in and they do internships. We can, as an industry, get involved in, even at the junior high level and high school level, participating in, partnerships with the STEM program, which is the science, technology, engineering, and math. And whether it's doing tutoring, presenting, really making our industry more visible out there and really showing what it is we can do. And then there's the piece around, competency development and how we take new entries into our industry and help move them up that competency ladder more quickly. And that, that's always been a big challenge. I know we're getting better. We're realizing the benefits of bringing in human factors and that being a big part of training. So, training's continually evolving, but I think it, needs to be kind of at the forefront of developing the next level of leader within our industry.
Yeah, I really agree with you there, Chris. I know one thing we're doing with the IADC student chapter program is we're trying to put the students, when they're still in school, through some of the well control training that IADC accredits. And so that when they graduate school, they already have a familiarity with how well control works, and actually in some cases they're already certified to have that with that training. So I think initiatives like that are really helpful, I think, towards achieving what you were talking about in terms of developing competency.
Absolutely. It's a partnership.
Yeah. Okay, so I like to move on now to look more at the business model aspect of our industry. We know the day rate model has been around for a long, long time, so it obviously has its merits, and that's why we keep using it, but it also has shortcomings, especially when it comes to driving collaboration and efficiency. So how can our industry utilize different business models that could incentivize better offshore drilling performance and efficiency? And how do you look at the risk and reward components of a contract and how the contract can be used to actually drive value creation? Chris, I was wondering if you could give us your take on that.
No, this is absolutely a great topic, great question. And you're right, the day rate model does not provide any incentive for our service partners and our drilling contractors to drill the top quartile well, which is always one of our goals, right? We want to drill a very efficient well, but also a very reliable well so that we don't have to come back and work it over. So we as an organization have been looking at how do we develop a better contracting strategy to get there. And what we have started going with is more of an alliance with both our drilling contractor and our service vendors being part of this alliance. So now we are a team drilling this well. And when we drill it under the expected AFE days and cost, the win, that prize, that savings gets split out instead of just us holding it for ourselves. And I think that's really providing that incentive to those we're partnering with on the well. When I say partner, I'm talking our service partners, drilling contractors as partners, not other operators as partners, but it really shares that the win around and provides that benefit, because let's be honest, if we drill a well in 60 days instead of 75, our drilling contractor just lost 15 days worth of day rate, right? Unless we're using the rig on the next well. So to them, that wasn't a win-win, that was a win-lose. And so going this direction, we think will, provide value all the way around and make things a more cohesive team.
Sure. JP, what's your take from a contractor's perspective?
Absolutely. I completely agree with Chris. I think, and we do see more and more of drilling contracts to include an efficiency element, which really drives that focus on efficiency and effectiveness of the well delivery. And I think we've achieved great results in previous models around uptime and safety. I think we kind of don't want to say that we ever stop working towards those goals, but the safety performance of our industry and the uptime that most drilling contractors is achieving today is really, really good. So focusing on the next level, the efficiency of the well delivery is definitely the right focus. But where we see that to be really critical is that we need to replicate those incentive program all the way along the supply chain, if you want, from operator, drilling contractors, service companies, but also our suppliers, right? And like I mentioned earlier, we want to create common goals where, when one partner wins, everybody wins. And when there's challenging times, everybody is challenged, right? The old model has been, operator, drilling contractor, or drilling contractors, suppliers, historically has been pretty bad. And when one suffers, the other one wins, and it's really not good. So we've implemented a lot of those learnings into our agreements with our supplier. We've got this maintenance agreement with our key suppliers, with incentive that align with our operators. So we got a really good alignment along the path here, and we see that to be really effective. Right. So focusing on reliability, obviously, but also focusing on efficiency, developing different technology, or focusing on the efficiency of the machine through data analytics. So we have tools at our disposal now that enable us to be more effective in that. endeavor as well. Well, we're basically pushing a lot of data to show, and we've got teams that are motivated to look at the data, analyze it, draw conclusion, and quickly implement the learnings from this data analytics. So I think creating that alignment, like Chris mentioned, where everybody share, a slice of the pie, really create that opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, JP. Alex, what's your take? How is the business model changing for the service providers?
I think we are pretty much aligned in terms of the difficulties that present to kind of show value for the drilling contractor from the service company perspective. How to show value to the drilling contractor or the operator is really difficult when you are speaking about day rate contract. So in this case, performance-based contract can help to reduce costs, achieve value beyond the contract's original scope by shifting responsibility from the buyer to the supplier and monitoring performance and managing processes. That is a change on the visualization of the whole scope, right? So maximize performance allows a contractor to deliver the required service by following his own best practices. Since the prime focus is the end results, contractors can adjust their processes as appropriate to the contract itself. So even though high efficiency equipment can build positive cash flow from guaranteed operational savings, the improved learning environment is evident, and knowledge of building systems and overall efficiency is there. So I mean, the change of the type of contract is really needed. We are aligned in that one.
So Chris, I'd like to understand from your perspective as an operator, what are the kinds of rig upgrades to rigs that operators would like to see right now, and how do you consider the economics behind those upgrades? So
within our business, we have, several priorities. Those being at the very top is safety of personnel. It's not just a statement, it is what we believe. It's strong barriers. We are drilling more challenging wells, and there is a universal desire to improve our planet, leave this place better than we found it. And so really it would be the technologies that support those items. So safety of personnel, we have red zone management, technology out to reduce dropped objects, process automation on the rig floor. We look at strengthening barriers. This is really, within my space itself. It's, how do we automate our well control processes, which can remove biases from the decision making. We don't take humans out of the equation, right? They are oversight, of course. How do we apply real-time data analytics to determine the health of the barriers? I believe JP alluded to that in his last response. With drilling more challenging wells, we have the MPD technologies that are out there that are helping. Several variants of MPD that have been applied and are, we see them helping us drill better, more reliable wells. And then, emissions reduction and what other technologies that are going to be coming forward to help us improve our planet. And so those would be, I think, at the forefront of what we want to see on rigs going forward, is things that would address those principles.
And JP, so for offshore contractors, what are the upgrades that you're most willing to invest in, and how do you consider the economics behind the upgrades?
A lot of that is influenced by the area of operation and our customer requirement. However, there's several avenues that we are looking at, and I will definitely echo Chris' earlier comment on safety. There's a lot of opportunities to further improve the safety of our operation, being red zone management systems, either from a procedural or technological perspective. The system that we are implementing on our rig called HaloGuard that provides spatial indication of where people are relative to machines and each other with interlocks to our machine. Kick detection technology during the drilling process. Blowout stoppers, so we increase the technology around the BOPs where the technology can actually interrupt an ongoing blowout if it ever occurs. We're looking at reducing exposure of personnel for robotics or automation, and as well as crane operation, which we also see to be an area of exposure. So safety is definitely a primary focus for investment in technology and upgrades. But we're also looking at operational efficiency and consistency of operation. So how can we consistently deliver effective and operation and efficient operation? Robotics comes to mind. We're experimenting with riser running operation with robots very effectively. We're getting on a few rigs here. Automated drill flow, so that's a technology we're interested in. And then another area is capability of the drilling rig itself, being 20K, increased hoisting capacity for more demanding wells, particularly in the Gulf of Mexico, dual stack, sharing technology. We're keeping up with what's available in the market, but also developing our own technology. So a lot of focus on the capability, and Chris mentioned also MPD. We're looking at MPD very, very closely. We've got MPD system on half of our rigs supporting our operators. So another area is aligned with our ESG goals around emission reduction. Doing a lot of data analytics, driving our focus. We want to be investing effective dollars, if you want, in our goal. Being closed burst operation, power management of the highest consumer on the rig. We see a lot of opportunities around cooling system, HPU, and things of that nature. Fuel additives. So around the emission reduction, there's quite a bit of work that we're doing in-house. And then obviously reliability and availability of equipment, optimizing maintenance, and so on. So some of these initiatives, we're talking about the financial consideration here, but some of these initiatives we'll implement them simply because it's the right thing to do. Some of them will require assistance from our partner. But the challenge here is we need to be very effective in the way we communicate the business case and the benefit of the technology, right? So our focus is to keep an ROI timeline that is aggressive, right? Benefits along 5-10 years is not something that anybody is really interested. We need to be looking more in the 12-18 months time frame to make a good case where everybody can actually get around the table and have good conversations.
And JP, just a quick follow-up on that. I heard you talk about some, ESG related upgrades. So at this point, do you see those as being more financial? Do they provide any financial incentives at this point, or are they just part of what we should be doing, so we're doing now?
So, there's a direct benefit from a fuel consumption, but typically this is not, this is the operator's benefit. So in some cases, we have a contract agreement that does reflect, incentive around fuel consumption reduction. We also see an opportunity in maintenance optimization, right? So if we run less engine, run less equipment, or maintenance costs will be less. But I think the business case in some of those cases is not obvious, right? But we're serious about those goals, and we want to go ahead and achieve them. We have over projects around fuel additives, so we tend to do that in partnership with our customer. We provide the technology, we do the installation, but we have a mechanism to take advantage of the fuel saving that is realized by our customers. So.
Thank you. So Alex, some of the upgrades that Chris and JP mentioned, around MPD and robotics, I know Weatherford is involved with a lot of those technologies. So from your perspective, what can service companies do to make upgrades like those more valuable for the operators and the contractors?
Yeah, we are aiming for safety also, as Chris and JP mentioned it, and also POV reduction through automation. So using technology to increase the safety of the personnel in the red zone, reduce personnel on board to impact the footprint created for the operations and logistics, right? So implementation of these technologies allow us to decrease the number of trips to the facility and avoid CO2 emissions, or at least reduce them, and also reduce the amount of material we are putting on board. That is really important for the environment and also for the economics of the project, right? Some examples that I can mention: we focus on the true automation with the development of technology that automate the connection makeup, eliminate the human error, and reduce the personal requirements and the rate location. Also, for some markets, so we have some technology that empowers the simultaneous operation for both the tongue and the computer from a single operator. So these technologies are in current intelligent handling development to ensure that the digital platform is generated to eliminate the human factors, which result in a personal optimization. So yeah, POV reduction and automation is the key from our perspective.
Sure. So we've seen a lot of progress made toward having autonomous rig floor in the U.S. land market. So on the offshore side, what do you guys see as the barriers to doing the same thing? And what do you actually see a business case for making the investment for that to happen on offshore rigs? Chris, what do you think?
So without me answering it, I'm going to pull some statistics from the National Academy's report that was published here in the beginning of the year. And what they say is the progress has been slowed by focusing on using technology for operational efficiency and optimization. And then the study goes on to state, and this is their words, not mine, that solutions that don't pay their way are challenged. And I think addressing this is going to require a mindset shift. Acquiring, installing, and beginning to use new technology will not save us money on day one, year one. We have to look for where is this benefit going to be and where do we start recovering this cost? And it's going to be in the future. So those steps have to be made now. The cost is going to be accrued now, but the benefit will be coming back down the road, and we've got to adjust how we look at cost and savings to make this more feasible.
So it sounds like we need to take a longer term view. Is that what you're saying with
Yes.
these machines?
Yes, because the use of machines, they can repeat the same process over and over with greater efficiency and more accurately than a human can repeat a process. So for example, from what I'm involved in, well control, a computer, and we've proven this in MPD, can more accurately manage a choke to maintain a downhole pressure than we as humans can. Still, when it comes to a well control, removing a kick process, we typically, large part of those operations are done manually with the human on the choke, managing that choke, taking in the data, processing the data internally, and then making the adjustment. Mm-hmm. And so if we were to take that approach of installing this technology, there would be a benefit to, improving that process.
JP, what do you think? What can we do to have autonomous rig floors?
I think I'll echo Chris' comments. I think the technology is available in some way or fashion. It's not completely there. but it is costly, and the ROI is not always obvious. I think in what we really need to look at is the entirety of the process we're trying to optimize. Specifically, I think it needs the technology on its own, and just adding software is not enough. We need to also look at how it's integrated across various equipment makers. So creating that link between different OEMs is important. Creating alignment with the maintenance program. So the way we operate those equipment and the technology that's required to make them operate requires equipment to be in really good condition, sensors and so on and so forth. So our maintenance program needs to be aligned to support the implementation of that automated function. But also looking at the individual equipment performance, right? I mentioned earlier, we're getting huge amount of data back from our rigs. What we can see is where the opportunity lies. Making a connection, for instance, what's the most valuable piece of equipment where we can focus on to improve efficiency. So looking at the equipment itself and where we can improve the performance of that piece of equipment to feed the automation is a key important. So we need to have a really holistic view about it. Some aspects of automations are good. Some aspect of automation will still remain or require human in the loop, at least for the foreseeable future. So to me, it needs to be a fairly conspicuous kind of initiative where we need to look at all the angles and not do automation for the sake of automation, but really look at it from an entire process and where the gains can be achieved, being safety, being efficiency, being well delivered.
Mm-hmm. Alex, what's your take on what we can do to have a better business case for it?
It's good to mention it by JP and Chris. I will only add, regulations could be a particular trick area when it comes to automation, given that the offshore drilling techniques have largely remained the same for decades. Nearly all the rules governing these operations are human-centric, right? So, however, benefits of automation are at the rig floor overpass this constraint. We need to put attention in that one. The rig operators are therefore largely depending on the offshore industry to develop a set of rules and regulations that will allow the automated drilling processes to be conducted safely with clear guidelines on how this system should be run. Of course, investment remains a crucial issue given that more of it needed for automation drilling system to flourish is required, right? So holistic approach, as JP was mentioning, is going to be needed, including even topics like regulations itself.
So that's actually a really great point, bringing up the regulators and whether that regulator be specific to a region, but we as an industry need to, and the term partner is probably not the correct term, but we need to work closely with the regulators as we're developing and beginning to use new technology. So we're not dropping a surprise on them saying, hey, here's what we got. We need approval in 6 months, 9 months, that they're already aware of this technology and what benefits it can add. So I think it's a great point that, regulators and regulation can have an impact on stymieing some of our technology advancements. But I think if we basically keep them in the loop, keep them involved, and keep them informed, I think we can make that a much smaller hurdle than it could be otherwise.
We have a few more questions that we had planned on, but since we have so many questions coming in from our viewers, I think I'd like to move the session to that part. So first question we have from the audience, from Robin McMillan, what are the best metrics for win-win contracts? We talked a lot about how that having win-win situation is really critical in our situation. Does anybody have any comments on that?
I'll say a couple of words here, but I think creating a good alignment, it's key, right? It needs to be realistic. It needs to be practical. The metrics that are being used needs to be very, very open and clear to everyone. I think that's the key for, in my opinion, to achieve, good results as a result of those initiatives being put in place. We all need to be very aligned and clear about what we're trying to achieve and how we're going to measure it. What's the target? So, yeah.
Very difficult question to answer. So we have another question around what are the obstacles that you see to implementing automation on rigs today? Is it more of a economic barrier, or is it integrating automation into existing workflows? Is a human factors barrier more?
So I'll start this one. I think it's very similar to our last question around, we're looking for, how is it enhancing what we do? There was a question specific to the blowout stopper within, this larger scale. And we have, as an industry, been very successful with the operation of drilling, completing, and putting wells on production. If we look at the number of wells that have been drilled versus, and this is just very, very simplistic, the number of challenges that have been faced. And so it's partially we've done this for years. And without the visibility of how this piece of automation, this piece of technology is really going to make a dramatic safety improvement or is going to make a financial step change, it's really hard to say, I'm going to take that step. And I know a lot of cases early on in our MPD journey, we could run feasibility studies on using MPD, and they were always more or less within a couple $1 million breaking. But what we found in the use of them is a different case. And so our use of this technology has grown and is continuing to grow based upon the realized benefit, which goes far beyond just, hey, we're saving money because we're drilling MPD. There's objectives that we would not have seen had we not had it. There's safety benefits that we're realizing to having this technology, having a closed system, whether it be in deep water or on surface wells. And so those are the pieces that are very hard to fit into a feasibility study and say, yes, this kit will pay its way. It's hard to see that until you're actually using it and you have some of those cases where you go, wow, had we not had this, outcome could have been quite different.
I think that, in order to remain competitive, when planning for integration of new technology, every change presents some challenges like aligning the people to the processes with the technology. So one of the most common reasons the technological transformation fails is that many people see it like a destination rather than a journey. What I mean is that too often technology implementations just because they are popular or in the current trend, the people is not giving the much thought to the people who are actually using it, right? So adopting new technologies requires strong leadership skills, and transparency need to be achieved, the implementation itself. And also changing the way how we recognize value of the implementation by the operators, the rig contractors, the industry itself. is closely related to the business model we were discussing previously. So yeah, those are kind of challenges that I see it.
JP, do you have anything to add?
No, I think I agree mostly with Chris and Alex's points. I think during the planning phase of a new technology implementation, there's usually a higher expectation as to the value creation, or the focus is on a particular aspect of the value creation. And as we come and go into the utilization phase, and the objectives tend to change, and the primary value creation is not necessarily there. We're generating other values, but not necessarily to the extent of what was expected at the time of planning. So I think the industry is aware of that, and historically we're not as if a great industry to be launching new technology. There's a lot at play. Usually things are fairly expensive to implement. There's risk associated with it. The technology may not be as mature as we would like it to be before we implement it. So the people who are actually need to deliver well may not be as willing to take that risk, right? So I think in some cases that's what we see, but there's a lot of excitement in the early phase, and then when the rubber needs to meet the ground, then everybody tend to take reservation and back off a little bit. So
I think JP makes a great point, and it kind of starts bordering on an answer to Renata's question, which is, with the risky environment, how do we communicate this? And it really is a changing of roles. And so we're evaluating our driller, our human on the rig. Their role is going to change as we introduce more automation, right? They're no longer pushing the button, turning the knob, adjusting the rheostat, picking up the brake. They are now watching a system do it. So their level of competency, which we have great people in the field, has to be a little bit higher, because they have to know in advance, what is that system supposed to do? And then they have got to know in an instant if it starts doing the wrong thing, so they can stop that process. And so that change in role is in how we work. It's changing our process. And so that does come with, as JP mentioned, some risks. It's very similar, to take it very simply. I loved having my old flip phone, but it didn't do near what I can do on an iPhone. I went from the flip phone to the BlackBerry, and man, it was just great. Now we're at an iPhone, and it does so much more than you ever could have done. But how you interface and how you use that technology, there's an advancing competence that comes with that. And that's the piece that we need to make sure we don't allow this advancing technology to misstep and create additional risk, right? The intent and the objective of all this technology is to reduce our risk, reduce our exposure as we drill these wells. And so there's a big responsibility upon us, and that's, service partners, drilling contractors, and operators, to make sure that we properly roll this out and attain that objective of reduced risk and more reliable wells.
Yeah, I would just add that last week IADC had the HSET conference in Houston, and one of our speakers was Dr. Todd Conklin, who is pretty renowned in the field of human factors, and he talked about human systems integration and how we really need to look at that piece where the humans and the machine comes together, and how that they interface with each other. We'll be releasing a video interview that we did with Dr. Conklin on later today. So certainly agree that that's a huge piece of the puzzle.
Now, there's, sorry to interrupt, but there's a lot of work. There's some work going on in that space within the IOGP, and they have eye tracking software, and they're putting it, they've used it in a simulator. Now they're going to apply it on the rig, and where is the driller looking and how can we make that layout more beneficial, right? So the driller can take in all this automation, all these different data points, and it's more of a transition than looking in various places to get it. How can we lay it out better? I think there's a lot of real-time monitoring centers that would probably benefit greatly from that technology. And how can we lay out multiple screens with multiple wells in a way that one human is not overloaded by looking at more than one well data set at a time? So I think there's a lot of benefit that's right on the horizon that, we can gain.
Chris, I completely agree with you. I think the human element is often the biggest challenge, being onshore or offshore, right? It tends to be a lot of focus on the actual technology itself, but not necessarily how the people on the rig are going to use it. Do they understand what it does? Do they have the level of training and competency to operate that new system in an effective manner? Are we providing the right level of support for them to be successful, being call center, being smart screens that provide the right level of information? All of that tends to be sometimes kind of overlooked, and the focus is pushing the technology as quickly as possible, and they'll figure it out, right?
No, it's absolutely agree with you 100%. The training has to include not just the what, but the why. Why are we doing this? Where is that benefit? So that you have, much like in the military, commander's intent. When things aren't going quite right, they know what that ultimate objective is, and we can take that step to get there.
As I said before, it's not just the final destination, is the journey itself, right? So how to do it exactly is at an SOP or something like that.
So we are coming up on the end of our session, our end of our hour. Would you like to make some closing remarks just on your outlook for our industry going forward? Do you feel optimistic? What do you feel are the biggest things that we need to look at in the next few years? Chris, why don't we start with you?
Sure. I wouldn't be involved if I didn't feel optimistic. I think there's lots of opportunities. I think our industry, day in and day out, really benefits the globe. We're looking at how do we do more? How do we make it better? So when it comes to job satisfaction, I don't know of many industries that have this same level of benefit that we do. And so I think going forward with technologies and where we're headed, very optimistic.
Alex, what about you?
Yeah, I see again a lot of activity coming up in the next years. I see a lot of opportunities for the people entering in our industry, new generations. We need to avoid them to hesitate to get into this kind of industry. And I see the three parties, even IADC, are working on initiatives to collaborate with the people and also incentivize the people to get in. We didn't touch that much in terms of the ESG, but also I see that the opportunities, the technological implementation are going to collaborate also with the ESG targets that the different companies are placing for the near future. So very positive about the future.
JP, what about you?
Same here. I mean, this is exciting time, where I think we've been looking for something like this to happen for a while. But I think we can really draw on the learnings and the changes that we've implemented during the leaner times to our benefit. The massive leap that we've seen over the last 10-15 years has been around technology and how we connect the rigs, how we can transfer some of the existing technology in our industry to our business. So really, really exciting, but the people element is really the biggest challenge. How do we improve our recruiting, accelerate our recruiting and get the right people on our rigs, but also understand that the profile of the future or near future offshore worker is going to be different from now or 10 years ago. And having that realization is key. So no, very positive about the future and really excited about the collaboration that we see more and more of between operators, service providers, drilling contractors, and suppliers. You know, this is really the recipe, in my opinion, for success.
Well, thank you all to our panelists for joining us today for this discussion. I think it's really useful when all the stakeholders can sort of come together and just kind of discuss and explore possible ways forward for our industry instead of just talking amongst ourselves. I really appreciate all three of your time. And I'm sorry there were other questions that we couldn't get into for the sake of time. Thanks to our viewers for joining us. And we will be making a recording of this session available on our website for viewing later, especially for the people who couldn't join us live. And with that, we will adjourn the session and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.